Welcome back to the Midterm Rental Mastery Show. My name is Tanisha Epps, and I am a real estate investor, and I am based in Richmond, Virginia. So I have been all over the place for the last couple of weeks, just doing a little bit of travel and working on some things at home. But if you guys did not catch me on Pace Morby's Get Creative podcast about maybe it was a week or so ago at this point, I'm going to drop the link in the description down below. Please go check it out. I had the opportunity to talk about midterm rentals on a panel with Pace because I went to a business buying mastermind that I was invited to by Abraham Gray, who is also soon to be one of my business partners. And it was a pretty great experience. So, if you guys remember, I've been speaking about building your network and really getting out there and letting people know what you do and who you are. The more that you do that, the more opportunities will come your way. So, if you haven't seen that, please go check it out. And again, I'll drop the description, the link in the description box below. So this week I want to talk about leases for midterm rentals. And I get this question a lot about what terms should be included in your lease. Well, I want to go ahead and address that today. Now, the thing is, what I do, everybody might not do the same thing. So I'm going to kind of go over some of the things that I put in my lease terms, and then whatever you choose to do for yourself, you can always come up with whatever you like. But I'm going to go through kind of what I use for my lease terms. And for the most part, this is consistent across the board. So it's not necessarily that they are for one type of guest. It's pretty general across the board. So starting with the first thing that I put, always, always, always use house rules. So in a traditional lease, you're probably not going to list out rules for your house. They're just kind of understood. The person's going to live there. They're going to be there long term, whatever that time frame may be. But in these scenarios, I like to use specific terms that's going to outline a few things. The first thing that I always have outlined in my lease is, as far as the house rules are, the fact that they are not allowed to have parties. So some of the same kind of things that you hear on the short-term rental side about not having parties, not having big events there. Now, if someone has children and they want to have maybe a birthday party with a few guests, usually I'm okay with that, but you need to let me know ahead of time. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason, and it's a liability issue if I don't know who's coming in the house. Because if something happens, I have insurance on that place and I'm on the hook for anybody that's there, that whether they get injured or something happens, to them while they're present in this property, I need to know who's staying there. And someone once asked me, well, what happens if it's someone who, they're staying at their place by themselves and they're having their, spouse or maybe a boyfriend, girlfriend, otherwise come over. Well, I need to know that, not because I'm trying to get in their business. The reason I need to know is for liability purposes. And, for the most part, as long as they let me know, it's totally fine. But I ask that people let me know. And then I also have a section on the lease that has them list out everybody that's going to be staying with them during the duration of their time frame. So if it's a family of 4 and it's 2 parents and their children, I ask the adults to list their names on the lease, but I also ask for the names of the children. So again, I really need to know who's in the house. I do this, by the way, also for pets. So another piece that goes into my lease is whether or not pets are allowed. If pets are not allowed, there is an acknowledgement and a checkbox that must be checked off and initialed that the guest acknowledges that they are not authorized to have any pets in the property. If they are going to have pets, then I ask them to list the type of pets and the number of pets, because we should have agreed upon this ahead of time. I had a scenario recently where the person was authorized to have 1 dog, and we found out that they had cats in the property and there was damage caused by the cats. And so because of that, they didn't get their entire security deposit back because they didn't tell us who was going to be there. If that was the case, we would have charged the appropriate fees for having those cats or every other pets. Now, I don't actually allow cats in my properties. Dogs I do, but not cats. I have a few reasons for that. Some of it is related to claws and just a few different things, and I may change that up later, but as of right now, I only authorize certain dogs. Another house rule that you may want to address is smoking. Is smoking permitted? Is it not permitted on site at all? If it is permitted, is it in designated areas outside the house, or do you allow smoking in the house? Make sure that you address that in your lease. Vehicles. How many vehicles will they be bringing with them? Is there a scenario where you're charging for parking? For example, we have some apartments that are downtown, and the parking is really tight there. So we have to actually pay for parking. If you have to pay for parking, is your guest going to have to pay for parking, or are you giving them that as a part of their lease? And how many vehicles can they have? Can they have one vehicle, two vehicles? I've gotten requests before for large families that have 4 and 5 vehicles, and we need to make sure that we address that. Because if you're in a community with your property that doesn't allow street parking and you only can park in the driveway, that might actually be an issue. So something you want to address. Now, we just passed the 4th of July. Another thing that I put into my terms is about fireworks. No fireworks, no firearms, unless, again, it's a state where it's legal and there's nothing I can do about it. Those things I address in the lease. So make sure you're thinking about the different rules that you want to have in your property as far as cleanings, what you're expecting them to do. And that way you're very clear up front and they acknowledge it and they sign off on it. Sorry, I had an itch over my eye. So another thing that I address in the leases is what happens if the person needs to leave early. Now, for example, my travel medical professionals, sometimes their contracts get canceled. I'm not being jerky. I understand that, and I let them know up front, if you have a cancellation, I really need you to talk to me. I'm going to ask them to provide proof that their assignment is canceled, not just because they, decided they want to go to another contract or something. If their assignment is canceled, there's really nothing they can do about that. And if they can't get another job, I'm not expecting them to stay and pay rent for 2 or 3 months if they couldn't stay with me because their job assignment got canceled. So talk about what you're going to do when it comes to lease cancellations. The next thing is what happens if the person needs to extend their lease. Do you keep them at the same rate, or will you charge them a different rate? These are things that you want to make sure that you outline as a part of your process up front, so that if it does happen, you're very clear about what you're going to do when the situation arises. And believe me, it will arise. So you want to make sure that you address it now and up front as a part of your lease. So that way you don't have to go figure out what you're going to do on the back end, and then communicate that with the person and put it in your lease terms and have them acknowledge it. If you're in a scenario, let's say that you allow people to give you 30-day notice and the person didn't give you 30-day notice, but they want to stay. Are you going to renew them at the same rate, or are you going to increase the rate? Really think about what you want to do in your business. There's no right or wrong answer unless you're in a state that has specific guidelines, which you should always go check. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just giving you the advice based off of what I know and what I've done. But these are things that you want to address and check ahead of time. Now, I usually tell people to give me a 30-day notice, but I'm checking in with them well before 30 days to see if they're going to need to stay with me longer or not. I had to yawn for like a half a second and then it went away. So my eyes got really weird right there. Anyway, so those are things you want to address in your lease, okay? The next thing is, who's going to be responsible for utilities? You may have a scenario where someone's staying with you for, let's say, a year or more, even though it's a temporary stay. If someone has a fire in their home, those tend to be longer stays. So talk about who's going to handle the utilities. Whose responsibility is it, and how are you going to handle it? Next thing is cleaning. Cleaning fees, whether that's on the front end, on the back end, or mid-stay. I know a lot of operators that offer mid-stay cleanings as an add-on service, but some of them require it. And not everybody does, and I don't do it in all of my locations, but there are some, depending on the reason why they're staying and for how long, that I may say, hey, I need to do a mid-stay cleaning every 3 months to make sure that the property stays clean, especially if they have pets. How are you going to handle that? Now, there are several things about these leases that are the same as, long-term leases. Like, how do you gain access to the unit? You want to address that in your lease about access. If you need to get access, are you going to give them 24-hour notice? Whatever that is, just make sure that you document it in your lease. Okay? Another thing that you should definitely talk about in your lease term is going to be maintenance and repairs. Who handles certain maintenance items? How were those handled? Make sure that you have your contact information as an add on to your lease. It just makes it so much easier. So, if the person needed to go look it up because maybe their phone died or something of that sort, if they have a copy of the lease that they can get to via their email, etc., it makes life a lot easier. Now, some of my leases I actually write using the software avail.co, and you'll see the link down in the bio or the description for this video. Avail is a cool site because it actually creates state leases for you if you pay to upgrade in the service. And that link that I have in the bio, it actually gives you $50 to use that you can try out. I don't really care so much about, the referral piece. I think at some point I probably max out on it anyway. But the thing I like about it is if you go through someone else's referral, it doesn't cost you anything and you get the freebies. And this one gives you a $50 freebie so you can test out using the software. And if you like it, keep using it. It also allows you to collect rent payments if the person signs up. I use it for all of my travel medical professionals. Everybody goes through Avail. It's super simple. You can use it as a background check service if you want to. You don't have to. It's totally whatever is the easiest for you. So just kind of go through and decide what you're going to use. Now, those are the main things that I put into my leases that are outside of a standard lease. Other than that, I just make sure that I define what the lease term is going to be. And again, what the rules are for extensions. Don't make it complicated. Don't overthink it. I think the problem is we have a tendency to think that we've got to create all of these nuances that are so different from long-term leases, and we really don't. The biggest key is I don't call my people tenants, I call them guests. That's one of the biggest differences for me in my actual lease terms. The rest of it, again, still kind of addressed the same way that I do a lot of my long-term leases. That's really all I have for this episode where we're talking about the guide to midterm rental leases. I hope that you guys will continue to watch and follow as I bring you more information. I'm going to start bringing on guests here really soon, and sometimes we'll talk about midterm rentals, and sometimes we'll talk about the deals that I'm doing with other people because I am in a position at this point where, I'm partnering with people on deals and selective situations. I'm also bringing on private money partners and also private money lenders, and it all depends on what the deal is and what everyone's bringing to the table. So if you're interested in being a private lender on any of our deals, please either drop me a comment and I will reach back out to you. I will also include the link to a web form that I have where you're welcome to submit your information for me to reach out to you if you're looking to lend on any of our deals. And again, I'm going to come on and start talking about the different deals that we're doing. Most of what I'm doing at this point is on creative finance. And if you guys don't know what that is, stay tuned. I'm going to talk about it a lot more. And you can go follow my mentor, my brother, my friend, Pace Morby. Don't forget to go watch the episode that I was on with him 2 weeks ago on his Get Creative podcast. But if that's it for today, and which I think it is, please like and subscribe to the video. Keep watching. And I really appreciate everyone who has subscribed, who leaves me comments. I do my best to reply to all of them in a very timely manner. And I just appreciate all of you. So happy Friday. Have a wonderful day. And I am going to go check on my new puppy that we just got. He's 2 months old. He's a little cavapoo. And I would grab him, but he's behind me asleep. So I'm going to leave him alone. Maybe he'll pop on the next time. Until next week, thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful Friday.